Another one, since we're on the kind of topic of bureaucrats, let's get
Yes.
into Health Canada. So, very recently, maybe you've seen, some of the posts, the hashtag SOS, Save Our Supplements. Health Canada is, taking their agenda further. I mean, this has been going on for like 20 years, at least.
A long time and a lot of meetings and a lot of expense.
Yeah.
And as far as I was concerned, the last set of rules that we put in place after 10 years of meetings, they were polite at first getting all of the so-called stakeholders involved, which is why I was there,
Right.
that might be affected by this. And so many things had to be considered because, for example, you can't take all of these herbs away because it's almost becoming racist against some of the
Right.
indigenous people
Yeah.
and a lot of their medicines, as well as a lot of the Asian herbs.
Right.
Various things, so they were almost worried about a civil revolt,
Yeah.
which was possible.
I mean, that's even more of a hot topic today,
But we ended up with the health protection branch ended up with very achievable rules, guidelines for what is called an NPN, a natural product number.
Yeah.
And if you're selling something that's for internal use, medicinally, it has to have an NPN on it. And it's not that expensive to get unless things have changed.
It has, yeah.
Has it?
Yeah, and that's part of it, what's going to be coming out in this new regulation, which, as of 3 days ago, everyone was like, we got us right to your MPs and trying to get this, they pushed it right through. It went through the Parliament, through the Senate.
Yeah.
It's now law.
Hiding in the care home, I didn't catch any of that.
I mean, it happened so quick, so quick. So now our only hope is to kind of repeal it. And I've been saying since day one, I mean, people should just not comply. Like businesses, I mean, we're self-enforcing it. Like I know a local health food store, they will not take any product without an NPN because that's what,
Yeah.
they're supposed to have, kind of thing. But yeah, you would have to have somebody, our mutual friend Yara Willard runs Harmonic Arts. He says you got to be making more than $1 million a year just to have the budget to consider getting NPNs. Otherwise, it's not worth it. Now, with this kind of going up a level, and there'll be, there's more regulations, there's more costs, there's probably going to be more enforcement. Anybody under that size will likely, possibly, I mean, there's a lot of speculation, not be able to be in business, because if you can't afford that, you can't be in it, especially
Right.
with increased fees. But it's several $1,000s per product. And previous, you would be able to submit, a health claim backed either by science or backed by traditional use, right? Historically used,
Yes,
traditional
yes.
use. Apparently that's gone now. You can't use traditional use as a justification. And I remember Terry ran into trouble because he submitted both and he got rejected because he's like, well, you've added both. We only want one. And the other totally absurd thing is you can only pick one health claim, right? So you think of a herb that's got 12, 15 different uses, like cat's claw, right? Well, are you picking anti-inflammatory? Because that's all you're allowed.
That's for the labeling.
Yeah, for the labeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a major rant I could go on a long time
If
about.
I had to do that for something like lavender oil, I would have to just pick smells nice. Because
Do you got some signs for that? We need.
there's this many uses for lavender oil, right?
Yeah, there's such absurdity around it. I mean, not only are we limited with our access, like the States is far more free to access natural products than we are. There's a larger population that might factor into it, but they've got a greater diversity. They've got higher strengths. They've got, you name it. There's already gatekeepers at the border that won't allow certain things over. If I bring in a product from the States, very oftentimes I might have to relabel it just because of the name. Like, so for instance, in Canada, you cannot use the word tonic. It's illegal. Yeah, it implies a health claim that can't be substantiated. It's totally absurd. Colloidal silver, max 100 parts per million. That's all you're allowed. Can't produce anything higher than 100 parts per million.
Is that even therapeutic?
No. you know, I mean, it can have some efficacy, but it's not really like
What it could
yeah, it could be. Yeah, no, it's totally absurd, and this they have just taken it to the next level. And they tried this back in 2008, and from my understanding, there was enough of a public pushback that they kind of backed off a little bit. But this one just like whew, it came out and then pushed right through. It's now law, and we'll yet to see. But there's all kinds of speculation that it could shut down entire industries, like naturopathic doctors. You know, the medicines that they would normally prescribe, they won't
Yep.
be able to have access to it. Companies that are in the States that are manufacturing this stuff to get it into Canada, there's already, you know, issues around, okay, you need French English, you need, you know, okay, fair enough, right? Got to change some labels.
Yep.
But now with this regulatory process, like each product, especially if it's a new product, the upfront costs, they're just not going to do it. The Canadian market is so small, it's not worth their time, you know, compared to business as usual within the States. So that's a big barrier, plus new companies starting. Existing companies might end up going out of business if they can't, you know, get to the level. Harmonic Arts is an example. You know, NPNs, they have tried all their, not I want to say all, but many of their formulas they had. They had like an anti-inflammatory one, a pain relief one. They've had to pull them because Health Canada would not approve an
Oh,
NPN.
I am so sad to hear that.
Yeah, so it's...
I thought we were safely past all of that.
No, unfortunately not. Yeah.
Round 2, here we go.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of it's on the heels of the last 3 years where people literally got to experience, you know, in their face, of this kind of one-track mind medical mentality of, you know, it has to be done this way. It's like, well, but I'm going to choose this way, you know, like I'm fine. I can take control of my health. I can make my own decisions. Oh, no, no. I remember there was, you know, the absurdity of the Canadian Dietitians Association, whatever they're called, right? Like right off the bat, they put out a public statement. You cannot boost your immunity, right? And so they put boost in quotation marks as if it was kind of a word play. Well, there's nothing that will boost your immunity, right? It's like they wanted people to interpret, well, there's nothing you can do, which is totally absurd, right? There's things you can support your immunity, you can stimulate your immunity.
I think my blood pressure is going up just listening to you right now.
Okay, let's get the rose back out.
No, it's okay. But seriously, that's just...
Yeah. So what do you do? I mean, you know, yes, there's letter writing, but I mean, it feels like we're begging, we're groveling these bureaucrats that know nothing, you know, or MPs that are kind of a third, you know, distance removed, like, oh, please, you know, don't do this. But what else do we do? I mean, non-compliance is one thing. You know, the kind of letter writing. I think that has value. Don't just send off an email. If you're going to do a form, you know, like a letter, like type it out, but you know, handwrite something of it. So if you've got 3 paragraphs that's typewritten, you know, do 1 little paragraph that you handwritten, mail it. You don't even need a stamp. You can send it. Don't just send it to your MP, because here in Alberta, right, you've got kind of this whatever Ottawa says Ontario, you know, because they've got the majority. It's like Conservatives as the opposition can say, do whatever they want, but it still goes through. They really have no power to change anything. So send it to the Prime Minister, send it to like every MP, send it to senators.
Does he know how to read?
He was a high school teacher, drama teacher.
That's right. Yes, he must. Yes.
Yeah. What did he left with? A $2.5 million don't say anything disclosure with one of his students? Yeah. Yeah. And if worse comes to worse, you know, there's always the black market. But that's not how we want to live. We want to have these things accessible to all. Only some people will go that. It's like we might be able to get away with that, and we want to empower people with their own skills. But it should be out in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Because more and more people are coming to it, and I think that's the fear. It's the pharmaceutical industry that's, these natural health products, they're dangerous, and absolutely, there's risk to everything. But never mind that pharmaceuticals, when even properly prescribed and taken, you know, third largest killer in the world, North America for sure, at least.
Yeah.
So everything has its risks.
Yeah, I used to have some of those stats at the back of my tongue when I was still teaching full-time
Yeah.
about how many millions of people a year die from federally approved drugs.
Right. Yeah. Even
It's astonishing.
yeah, even properly prescribed, taken with the right dose. Like this is not like, oh, well, she just took the whole bottle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Iatrogenics and yeah, I get it. So, anyways, I think foundationally to all this, it's like listening to these interviews. It's building your knowledge about, wild medicine, plant food medicine that they will never be able to take away, even if they're still trying to eradicate the henbane, and other noxious weeds. That should be the foundation, and then do what we can to try and save access within the commercial and the public realm. But
My only, well, I've had two issues come up for me selling product. One of them was with bug spray.
right, yeah,
And
yeah, and sunscreen's another one too. But yeah, bug spray, like that's
yeah.
like hands off. You cannot say anything related to what it might actually do.
right,
Yeah,
So-
how'd you get around that? You
people were getting creative there for a while, but well, now I just jumped to a different part of the same story, but it's not that long ago that I saw a fairly large article in the Calgary Herald that was "Scientists Discover How DEET Works." And I literally dropped the paper, picked it up again. Are you kidding?
Right.
After all these years of, I remember when I was a kid using full-strength DEET, at times you could pick up a transistor radio to go to the beach, and some of the handle was sticking to your skin by the time you got to the beach because the bug spray melted plastic.
right,
And they finally figured out how it worked. But anyway, yeah, I got called in over my bug spray, and I can't remember what it was called at the time. Might have been something like Bug Off.
right, yeah.
People have used names like that, But so I finally got the call from a very polite woman on the phone, and we talked about who I was and my history and how much I was making and all of that. And I thought she had already seized, because that had happened a year or two before. They'd gone to some of our bigger stores, like Community, for example.
Yeah.
Nice but not overly dressed couple comes into the store. You got any of that? Can we help you? Yeah, got any of that? Like all natural bug spray? And they just go in and look at the labels and go get a shopping cart and take it all off the shelf
Right.
out to their truck. They just taking stuff off the shelf. Right?
Yeah,
So I knew a few people that were keeping it in stock, but in a garbage can in the back room.
right.
And unless you recognize the customer, you know them personally, you're not getting any kind of thing.
Yeah,
Undercover ops. But we had a very polite conversation, and
well, they always
I
send
thought she'd already seized it. It was from a shop out in Cochrane. And I guess I misinterpreted the phone call. But I said, oh, if you haven't thrown that out yet, it really works well, so you keep it for yourself. And she said, oh, Blaine, I didn't seize anything yet.
right.
But I'll be back next week, and if it's still on the shelf, I'm
Right.
taking it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they send the polite ones first, and then the guys.
No,
with
the
guns.
same lady would have come back. But
Right.
She was, I thought, kind enough, especially that it was in written form. I got an envelope about that thick of paper covering there was all forms and stuff that had to be filled out.
Yeah.
For me to do it properly. And I got back to her and explained to her that the scope of my business and how small it was by general standards, and that I make net profit $200 a summer on the bug spray that I sell.
Yeah.
So how about I can't afford to spend, it wasn't a lot, it was $2,800 or something
Yeah.
to get it registered as whatever. And I said, so how about we'll just agree that I won't make it anymore.
Right.
And but I said, I'm just kind of curious, because I was in the shower and I was thinking about, but it just works so much. It just works. It's like the cat's meow. I said, what if I call it cat's meow? And she paused very politely and said, well, as long as there's nothing to do with the word bug on the label, it's no longer my department.
Right.
And she kind of giggled and said, good idea. She was kind of working with me a little bit,
Yeah.
But then I said, but there must be a person like you that handles all the animal product. So if I call it cat's meow,
Yeah.
it's going to suggest there must be a cat lady person that's going to be out there looking for it. And she kind of sadly went, "Oh, you're probably right.
Yeah.
So I better just quit then." Okay.
Right.
And that's where it ended.
Jeez.
You know, and nothing was seized, and I kept making it like officially, as a practitioner, I can still blend. I can, what's the word I'm missing here? I can, when you blend something for somebody one-on-one.
Oh, well, you're, yeah, like customizing kind of thing.
I know, but there's a word I'm missing. Anyway, I can still make things for my own patients.
Yeah.
It's not going on a shelf where an unknowing consumer, like one of the government meetings I was at, I think it was with Ray Dunphy when she was still alive, and we heard the numbers they were talking about, and a couple times at this 2-day meeting, we were very fortunate that it only happened in, I think, Toronto and Calgary or something. So I got to come home to it was at the hotel where I could just drive home for lunch, kind of thing. So that was fortunate. Didn't have to take plane tickets and get a hotel room to attend these meetings. But several times we just kind of turned to each other and said, "What are we doing here?" Because by their definition, small producers were like 100,000 units a year or
Right.
something. You know,
Yeah.
we sell 1,000 units a year, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
They came back through, once everything was in place, I went to a meeting somewhere. I was the only one of my league, meaning little old me there, because it was mostly bigger players. But the two people doing the meeting were people who had just got their naturopath degree, but didn't have time to actually pursue a career yet. And the government wanted to hire people that were naturopaths so they could say they had
Right.
an expert advisory council.
Yeah.
But really these people didn't know much yet because they hadn't started their practice,
Yeah.
right? And practice. So again, I was there with the gal who was teaching aromatherapy from Mount Royal College, and her and I looked at each other and said, "What are we doing here?" Because they had a pie chart with like a small business was 100 people or less,
Right.
and her and I were both just doing this ourselves.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like I'm the staff,
Yeah.
and with this number of sales, there was no category for us.
Yeah.
So why are we wasting our time being here this morning?
Yeah.
You know, it was almost oppressive as a taxpayer to see what was going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, she said, yeah, I haven't, anyway. So I just quit with that. And then there was another occasion where, come COVID time, it wasn't even something I had really wanted to do, but I had been making the Thieves Blend,
Oh, right.
which you can get, if you look at enough history books, you can get the recipe for, because it really happened with these 4 famous robbers that were in France and eventually went to trial, and different versions of, even in encyclopedias that I've read, where the judge of the day said, individually, much of your crime has been petty theft, but combined, you guys have had quite a run here. But everybody is wondering how it is that you've been entering all these plague-stricken homes and neither of you've gotten sick. So you know something that would help a lot of people. And if you will cough up your recipe, I will either A, hang you instead of burning you at the stake. That was one version of the story.
Right.
The other one was it was dropped completely and they were just released.
Right.
I prefer that they were released, but even the hanging story is a good story.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said it's not even my recipe; it's in the history books. But I was prompted by one of my clients to make a hand sanitizer,
Right.
and there is a pharmaceutical definition of exactly what concentration of alcohol you need for it to work, and I wasn't adding any regular white alcohol, is that's just grain alcohol, I think. So I wasn't using any. Therefore, it couldn't actually be a hand sanitizer,
Right.
even though all of the essential oils that are in the Thieves Blend have far more power than regular alcohol does.
Yeah.
So if anything, it was way stronger than any other hand sanitizer. So I had mixed some of the Thieves Blend into organic aloe vera gel so that we had a little travel thing.
Yeah.
And mistakenly, one of my clients put a big thing about that on their website. And some client, maybe her husband was a doctor, I don't know.
Right.
But somebody complained.
Yeah.
And it made it all the way to the HPB.
Right.
And I got a call from the office, and there was this whole, I'm going to be blunt and say, shit show that went on for a couple of days until I finally got the right person on the phone and said, well, how many thousand units have you been selling? Like, he pictured that I had this big operation going on.
Yeah.
And I said, well, it's currently in 4 stores. How much have you sold? 2 dozen.
Yeah.
And I could just hear this guy pausing at the other end of the phone. Why am I wasting my time with this guy? You know,
Yeah.
like, and he said, well, yeah, I just get it off the shelf, or somebody's going to pull it. But and I just agreed not to make that anymore. But I continued to formulate. That's the word I wanted earlier.
Right. Okay.
I continued to sell it to my own clients.
Right. The formula.
You know, so if somebody dropped in, I could sell it to you. I think.
You know, it shouldn't matter whether you're selling 12 or 12,000, right?
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. This is.
But the thing is, well, wait a minute. The only qualification there is that if I am selling you something that I made for you,
Yeah.
we are in the position of I can tell you about any potential side effects,
Right.
proper dosage, and everything else. But if it's going to go on a shelf where a completely untrained public can pick it up and read the label, and this gets back to it has to say one thing clearly.
Right.
Like an astringent blend, the same blend will keep your face looking younger, help you wean a child, or almost stop your hemorrhoids.
Yeah.
It's just something that shrinks tissue.
Yeah.
So you can use it on your butt
Yeah.
or your face or your breasts, but somebody's only going to buy it for weaning if it says weaning formula.
Right.
If it says butt formula, they're not going to. See what I mean?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
that's just consumerism.
Yeah.
So, but that's the difference, is where we're in a position where it's my responsibility as the maker to make sure you understand the product fully.
Right.
And we can't get all that data onto a label.
No.
So back to this meeting with Ray, somebody in the room said, Blaine, you must have something in your bag, because they had a chart of she had this thing on I was surprised that they were still using even overhead projectors, I think. And it had all the information that had to be in Latin, French, and Canadian, or English, sorry. Sorry, French people. But 3 languages, and all of what it was good for, and it all had to be on the bottle.
Right.
And somebody said, and several of us were trying. The woman that was supporting me, I think, was from Longcomb. She was there because this also affected the beauty industry, right?
Right.
And somebody said, Blaine, you must have something in your bag. And I found I don't think it was even a 4 ml vial, but they're the same size anyway. And I walked right up to this panel of about 8 people from Ottawa. And I kind of slammed this little vial down on top of the projector and said, show us how.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And the whole panel just kind of looked at each other and kind of went eyes wide. And,
Yeah.
I said, if I take this product, which currently sells retail for $9.95, the only way I can conform with your standard here is to put it in a box this big with a booklet inside, and it's going to sell for at least $29.95.
Yeah.
So do we really have to go that far? And I had them.
Right.
It was interesting that I brought up at that meeting enough questions that at the breaks, the panel was coming to me with questions.
Right. Yeah.
So I obviously shook them up a bit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, this is what's required.
but it's
They have no idea what they're doing.
it's ignorance based.
Yeah.
Really, that was my only point.
Yeah.
After all that.
Totally. Some bureaucrat, right? Like even you mentioned, okay, a naturopath that's gone through naturopathic school, they probably got a certain amount of knowledge, but hardly any experience, right? If that's
but it looks good on the paper. Yeah.
yeah, this kind of a thing, using as consultants to people that know, yeah, far less, and yeah, with different interests. Anyways, totally. If anybody wants to kind of get more into this, which you should, the kind of main organization, the main leader behind the resistance, shall we call it, is Sean Buckley. That's SHAWN Buckley, and he's with the NHPPA, Natural Health Products Protection Association. You can go to nhppa. I think it's org or com. You just type that in, Sean Buckley, and he's up to date, like literally by the day. He's doing webinars. So I got an email from him saying, sorry guys, it's gone through. They slipped it through, it's now law last night. And here's our strategy. So he's kind of the main one that's leading the charge.
Wow.
And unfortunately, people like the CHFA, the Canadian Health Food Association, are not as helpful as they could be or should be, despite supposedly meant to be representing, health food.
And as a Canadian taxpayer, I have no right to know that this happened without us knowing.
Right? Yeah. Well, you make your vote once every 4 years, right? And that's all. That's democracy. That's all you get. And if your guy doesn't get in, then, well, too bad.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll just learn how to speak English better and get dramatic.
Yeah.
That's what we can do.
Anyways, politics, bureaucrats. Yeah.
We're getting too political now.
Yeah. Well, we're
supposed to be herbalists.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not politicians.
But yeah.
So we have to pay attention because we both love making things.
Yeah. No,
to help a lot of people.
Yeah. And
how many thousands